There comes a moment when exhaustion no longer feels dramatic, it just feels normal. You've tried to think positively about money, tried to visualize abundance, tried to raise your vibration, and yet, somewhere beneath all the effort, there's a quiet tension in your chest that never really leaves. It's the tension of forcing results, forcing timelines, forcing yourself to believe that if you just try harder, hustle longer, affirm louder, something will finally shift. But the harder you push, the more distant prosperity seems to feel, as if abundance is something that must be chased rather than received. What if the problem has never been your desire for wealth, but the energy behind the way you pursue it? Forcing abundance is often disguised as ambition, discipline, or spiritual commitment, yet underneath it usually lives fear. Fear of not having enough, fear of falling behind, fear of not being worthy. When your nervous system is operating from pressure and scarcity, every financial decision becomes loaded, every opportunity feels urgent, and every delay feels personal. In that state, you are not aligned with prosperity. You are reacting to survival. True abundance does not respond to desperation, and it does not bloom under self-imposed pressure. It grows from coherence, when your thoughts, emotions, and actions move in the same direction without internal resistance. Transforming your relationship with money begins not by demanding more from the universe, but by shifting the way you relate to receiving, deserving, and acting. Prosperity is not something you force into existence. It is something you allow, cultivate, and sustain through intention, gratitude, and aligned action. There is a subtle but powerful difference between moving toward prosperity and chasing it as if it were constantly slipping away. When abundance feels distant, the instinct is to intensify effort, to tighten control, to monitor every result as proof of progress. Yet this tightening creates an internal contraction that silently reinforces the very scarcity you are trying to escape. The more you attempt to dominate the outcome, the more your body registers that something is missing, and that sensation of lack becomes the emotional foundation from which you act. Prosperity cannot stabilize inside a system that is bracing for loss. Much of this tension operates below conscious awareness. You may believe you are being proactive, responsible, even spiritually disciplined, but beneath the surface, your nervous system may be interpreting financial goals as threats. When the body is in a subtle state of survival, perception narrows. Opportunities are evaluated through fear rather than vision. Decisions are rushed or postponed out of anxiety. Comparison becomes sharper. Time feels compressed. In this state, money is no longer neutral. It becomes charged with identity and urgency. The effort to make it happen begins to override clarity, and action turns into agitation. Agitation feels productive because it creates movement, but movement is not the same as alignment. You can be busy all day and still reinforce the identity of someone who does not yet have enough. Every time you check results with tension, every time you measure your worth against a number, you quietly confirm to yourself that prosperity is elsewhere. The paradox is that the harder you try to prove abundance, the more your internal narrative centers on its absence. Your focus becomes anchored in what is not yet here, instead of what is already building. There is also a psychological mechanism at play that deepens this cycle. Human beings are wired to avoid loss more strongly than to pursue gain. When financial pressure increases even slightly, your brain amplifies potential threats. You become more sensitive to setbacks, more reactive to delays, more guarded in your choices. That vigilance may appear responsible, but when it dominates your mindset, it restricts creativity and courage. Prosperity requires expansion, yet fear-based control shrinks perception. It narrows possibilities to what feels safe in the moment rather than what aligns with long-term growth. The experience of forcing abundance often reveals itself in subtle emotional cues: impatience when results do not arrive quickly, irritation when others succeed, an underlying restlessness even after small wins. These signals are not moral failures. They are indicators of misalignment between intention and emotional state. When your desire for prosperity is entangled with urgency, you begin negotiating with life. You think in terms of, if I do this, I must receive that, turning your vision into a contract rather than a commitment. That hidden pressure creates resistance because it places your sense of safety in the outcome instead of in your identity. Alignment begins when you recognize that abundance is sustained by internal stability rather than external acceleration. When your system feels regulated, decisions become clearer. You can evaluate opportunities without desperation. You can wait without feeling abandoned. You can act without trying to force proof. This shift does not mean passivity or indifference. It means that your actions arise from intention instead of fear. Intention carries direction without panic. It allows you to move consistently without gripping the result. As this awareness deepens, the focus gradually transitions from controlling circumstances to cultivating coherence. Prosperity becomes less about immediate validation and more about building a self-concept capable of receiving and managing growth. When you release the compulsion to force, you create space for gratitude to anchor you in what is already working. And from that grounded state, action no longer feels frantic. It becomes deliberate, measured, and aligned with the person you are becoming rather than the fear you are trying to outrun. Long before money ever became a number in your bank account, it became a story inside your mind. That story was shaped by observation, emotion, and repetition. Perhaps you absorbed subtle messages about struggle, about how hard life must be, about how wealth changes people, or how security is always temporary. These impressions did not arrive as formal lessons. They arrived as feelings in moments of tension, as overheard conversations, as silent comparisons. Over time, they formed an internal narrative about what money means and who you are in relation to it. For many, this narrative operates automatically, influencing choices without conscious reflection. When abundance feels difficult to sustain, it is often because the identity attached to money has not evolved. If, at a deeper level, you associate wealth with pressure, responsibility, or the fear of losing it all, then receiving more can feel unsafe. The mind may say it wants prosperity, but the body may still brace against it. This inner contradiction creates subtle self-sabotage, not through dramatic failures but through small patterns, hesitation in opportunities, undervaluing work, avoiding conversations about compensation, or overspending to relieve emotional tension. These behaviors are not random. They are consistent with the identity that has been rehearsed internally. Money tends to magnify what already exists. If there is insecurity, more resources may intensify the fear of losing them. If there is guilt around earning more than others, prosperity may feel like betrayal. If there is an unspoken belief that success requires exhaustion, financial growth may be pursued through burnout. In each case, the external situation reflects the internal script. The relationship with money is not merely transactional, it is psychological and emotional. It mirrors self-worth boundaries and the ability to tolerate expansion without collapsing into anxiety. There is also a dimension of shadow within financial identity. Certain emotions around money are rarely admitted openly. Envy when others advance, resentment toward those who appear privileged, quiet superiority when outperforming peers, or shame when falling short. These emotions, when unexamined, influence behavior indirectly. Envy may drive impulsive decisions to prove worth. Shame may lead to withdrawal and avoidance. Resentment may create subtle resistance toward opportunities that resemble those of people one unconsciously judges. The complexity of these reactions reveals that prosperity is not simply about strategy, it is about emotional integration. As awareness increases, it becomes evident that prosperity stabilizes when identity expands to hold it. This does not require adopting artificial positivity or denying past conditioning. It requires recognizing that beliefs about money are learned patterns rather than fixed truths. When a belief is seen clearly, its grip begins to loosen. Instead of reacting automatically to financial triggers, space appears between stimulus and response. In that space, new interpretations become possible. Money can shift from being a symbol of survival to a tool for expression, contribution, and creative expansion. This transformation does not happen through denial of fear, but through understanding it. Fear around money often signals a desire for safety, belonging, and significance. When these needs are acknowledged internally rather than projected onto income, financial decisions become more grounded. You no longer expect money to repair emotional wounds it was never designed to heal. Instead, prosperity becomes part of a broader alignment, where self-respect informs pricing, clarity informs planning, and gratitude softens comparison. Over time, this evolving relationship changes the quality of action. Choices become less reactive and more intentional. Boundaries strengthen without aggression. Receiving feels less threatening and more natural. Prosperity begins to feel sustainable because it is no longer built on fragile emotional foundations. The narrative shifts from "I hope this lasts" to "I am becoming someone who can steward growth." In that shift, abundance stops being something that must be forced and starts becoming something that reflects who you are learning to be. Intention is often misunderstood as wishful thinking wrapped in confident language. Many people believe that setting a clear financial goal is enough to shift their reality, yet intention without emotional coherence can quietly transform into pressure. When intention carries the hidden expectation that life must respond on a specific timeline, it becomes a demand rather than a direction. That demand tightens the body, sharpens impatience, and subtly communicates distrust in the unfolding process. Prosperity built on that emotional tone feels unstable because it depends on immediate validation. True intention is quieter than urgency. It does not argue with circumstances or negotiate with outcomes. Instead, it establishes orientation. It clarifies why prosperity matters beyond status or comparison. It connects financial growth to deeper values such as freedom, contribution, creativity, or stability. When intention is rooted in meaning rather than fear, it becomes sustainable. The nervous system does not interpret it as a threat. It interprets it as alignment. From that place, action feels purposeful instead of frantic. Gratitude plays a crucial role in stabilizing this orientation, yet gratitude is frequently reduced to superficial positivity. Genuine gratitude is not about denying challenges or pretending that everything is perfect. It is about recognizing evidence of progress and capacity in the present moment. When attention repeatedly acknowledges what is functioning, what is improving, and what has already been built, the brain begins to recalibrate its default focus. Instead of scanning constantly for lack, it learns to register sufficiency. This shift softens urgency and reduces the emotional volatility that often accompanies financial goals. There is a powerful psychological effect that occurs when intention and gratitude operate together. Intention directs attention toward growth, while gratitude anchors awareness in what already exists. Without intention, gratitude may drift into complacency. Without gratitude, intention may escalate into restlessness. Together, they create coherence. The mind holds a vision of expansion, while the body remains regulated by acknowledgement of current stability. This balance allows prosperity to feel like a natural extension rather than a desperate leap. When coherence strengthens, the quality of thought changes. Visualization becomes less about escaping the present and more about rehearsing responsibility. Financial goals are imagined not only in terms of acquisition, but in terms of stewardship. There is a recognition that receiving more requires the emotional capacity to manage more. Gratitude supports this capacity by reinforcing the sense that growth is deserved and sustainable, not fragile or accidental. It reduces the impulse to sabotage progress out of fear of losing it. Aligned action emerges organically from this coherence. When intention is clear and gratitude stabilizes perception, decisions begin to reflect long-term vision instead of short-term relief. Opportunities are evaluated based on resonance rather than desperation. Patience increases because progress is measured in consistency rather than dramatic breakthroughs. Even setbacks are interpreted differently. Instead of confirming inadequacy, they become feedback within a larger trajectory. This reframing protects momentum and prevents emotional collapse when outcomes fluctuate. As the internal climate shifts, prosperity starts to feel less like a prize to be captured and more like a pattern to be cultivated. Intention provides direction, gratitude regulates perception, and aligned action translates both into tangible movement. None of these elements operate effectively in isolation. When unified, they generate a stable frequency that supports sustainable growth. The relationship with money becomes less reactive and more relational. Instead of forcing abundance through pressure, prosperity begins to unfold through coherence, reinforcing the identity of someone capable of receiving, managing, and expanding with clarity and steadiness. Aligned action is often confused with intensity. In a culture that equates productivity with worth, It is easy to believe that more effort automatically leads to more prosperity. Yet intensity without clarity frequently results in exhaustion rather than expansion. When action is fueled by anxiety, it becomes scattered. Multiple tasks are pursued simultaneously, priorities shift reactively, and progress feels inconsistent despite constant movement. This pattern reinforces the belief that success requires strain, and strain becomes normalized as the price of growth. True alignment does not eliminate effort, but it refines it. It organizes energy around what genuinely matters rather than what temporarily relieves pressure. When the internal state is coherent, when intention is clear and gratitude stabilizes perception, action becomes more precise. Decisions are filtered through long-term vision instead of immediate emotional fluctuation. This precision reduces wasted motion and increases the impact of each step. The experience of productivity changes from frantic acceleration to deliberate construction. Sustainable prosperity is rarely the result of sudden breakthroughs. More often, it emerges from consistent systems. Systems in this context are not rigid structures designed to suppress spontaneity. They are supportive frameworks that reduce emotional volatility. Financial clarity, regular reflection, and disciplined focus create predictability within uncertainty. Predictability calms the nervous system. When the body does not feel constantly threatened by unpredictability, creativity and strategic thinking expand. In that expanded state, opportunities are recognized more readily and navigated more confidently. There is also a relationship between boundaries and abundance that is frequently overlooked. When energy is dispersed across too many commitments, financial growth becomes diluted. Agreeing to obligations out of guilt, fear of missing out, or the need for approval consumes time and attention that could be directed toward meaningful progress. Aligned action involves recognizing that every yes carries a cost. When boundaries strengthen, energy consolidates. Consolidated energy accelerates momentum because it is not fragmented by distraction or emotional negotiation. Patience becomes another defining quality of aligned action. Forcing abundance often stems from impatience with natural cycles. There is an expectation that intention should translate into immediate visible results. However, growth tends to compound quietly before it becomes obvious. When patience is present, effort remains steady even in the absence of instant reward. This steadiness protects against emotional extremes, neither euphoria in brief success nor despair in temporary setbacks. Prosperity built on patience is more resilient because it is not dependent on constant validation. The emotional tone behind action influences its sustainability. When work is approached as proof of worth, burnout becomes likely. When action is framed as expression of identity, it feels different. There is less desperation to prove and more commitment to embody. Each decision reinforces the self-concept of someone who handles growth with maturity. Financial progress, then, is not experienced as external fortune, but as confirmation of internal evolution. The relationship with money shifts from pursuit to partnership. As these patterns stabilize, abundance ceases to feel fragile. It no longer depends on bursts of motivation or external affirmation. Instead, it reflects disciplined coherence, intention directing focus, gratitude regulating perception, and aligned action translating vision into consistent behavior. Forcing fades because there is no longer a need to grasp at outcomes. Growth unfolds through accumulated alignment. Prosperity becomes less about achieving a distant milestone and more about sustaining a way of being that naturally generates expansion. In this state, abundance is not chased. It is cultivated through deliberate, grounded, and integrated movement forward. There is a profound shift that occurs when you stop trying to wrestle abundance into your life and begin reshaping the way you relate to it. Forcing prosperity was never about ambition. It was about fear, disguised as effort. It was the nervous system seeking certainty through control, the mind attempting to secure safety through urgency. Yet real stability does not come from pressure, it comes from coherence. When your intention is clear, your gratitude is grounded in present evidence, and your actions are aligned with the identity you are building, prosperity stops feeling distant or fragile. Throughout this journey, the transformation has not been about attracting something mystical from outside of you. It has been about dissolving the internal contradictions that kept abundance unstable. By understanding the emotional narratives around money, recognizing the subtle tension behind forced effort, and cultivating consistent, aligned movement, you create an environment where growth can sustain itself. Prosperity becomes less about chasing outcomes and more about embodying readiness. When alignment replaces urgency, you no longer measure success by immediate results alone. You recognize that expansion is a reflection of who you are becoming. And in that realization, abundance shifts from a constant pursuit into a natural extension of your coherence, patience, and clarity. Now ask yourself this: if abundance is not something to force but something to embody, who are you willing to become in order to sustain it? If this message resonated with you, subscribe to this channel to continue deepening your understanding of aligned prosperity and conscious growth. There is another video waiting for you on the end screen that will expand this conversation even further, guiding you into the next level of clarity and financial coherence. Keep watching, because the shift you are building does not stop here.